Welcome to Beyond the Reformer, the podcast where those who love Pilates come together for thoughtful conversations, genuine insights, and inspiring stories. I'm your host, Nick Lenny, and through these chats, I hope you feel more connected to our community, more aligned in your purpose, and inspired both in your Pilates journey and beyond. In today's episode, I'm joined by Audrey O'Connor, who is based in Dublin. Audrey is a Pilates teacher, a sound healer and teacher trainer. She's also a Reiki master. In today's conversation, we talk about how she works with some corporate giants on their well-being and how she has gone from Pilates healing her to looking at lots of other ways to enrich both her own well-being and her clients. This is such a great conversation. Audrey is actually from down the road from where I'm from in Ireland. So it's a really small world, and I can't wait to share this conversation with you. Audrey, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Hey Nick, how's it going? Greetings from Dublin.
Oh, it's so nice to chat to you. To start our conversation today, I'm really interested to talk to you about your Pilates world. I know you've also got into so much more than that from a healing space in terms of your Reiki and your sound healing in particular. I'd love to go back just a bit earlier to your time before Pilates, and I'd like to understand what led you into your corporate life, and then what was the moment for you that you realized something had to change?
Thank you so much for asking, because my journey definitely wasn't linear, and I didn't just, but I think when I was I'm 40 now. So when I was in my 20s, Pilates was emerging. It wasn't as big as it is now. And people were definitely doing it, but there wasn't many studios in Dublin. But if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really get into Pilates in my 20s or even in my teens. And I'd always kind of thought of myself as not really that sporty. In school, you're always kind of divided into like the sporty girls, the basketball girls. I'm from Kerry, and you know Kerry very well. It's a football county. So I played a bit of football, not very well, to be honest. You only had the choice between football and basketball, and there was just literally no in between. So then my brain just said, well, you're not very good at that, so that's not for you. And, in teenage girls anyway, there's a huge drop off with sport anyway. So it just wasn't anything that was on my radar. When I went to college, I didn't really think about doing anything in wellness. It wasn't a conversation I was ever having. And I talk about this all the time. I went to a career guidance counselor, not in my school, but in a neighboring town. And during those times, because it was in 90s, I guess, well, maybe 2000s. When you were that age, you just went to the career guidance counselor, you asked them what they thought you would be good at, and then they told you. So you would go and then you'd say, I'm really good at biology, I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. And then you have this person you've never met in your life before who does a little personality test with you and then says, yeah. So for me, he was a really great guy. He said, I think, what are you interested in? I said, I love construction, I love building, I love admiring architecture of buildings. And then he said, which was unusual at the time, he said, I think you'd be actually really good at quantity surveying, which is construction management. And he was probably the first person in years that had said something to me that wasn't become a teacher or become a nurse. And I was like, wow, this is really refreshing. Didn't even think about it. Didn't have Google at the time, so didn't even Google it. I just said, I trust what he's saying. Maybe the universe was guiding me somehow. And I did construction economics in college. And I was lucky because I went to Dublin, studied it for 4 years, really enjoyed it, had a lovely group. Construction is an interesting course to do anyway, because it's dynamic. In the job I was doing, there's a lot of communication involved. You're dealing with architects, project managers, you're dealing with builders. So you're on site, and that's the part of it that I loved. I didn't exactly love measuring buildings, measuring mechanical and electrical work, but I did love that. And then I moved to Canada because I wanted to work with like high-rise buildings. So I was working residential construction and industrial. So I moved there. And then when I got to Canada, it all started kind of unraveling then at that point. I was in my mid-20s. I'd been working in the industry for about 6 years. And then I was looking for a job over there. It's like anything. When you go abroad, you generally have a job set up over there anyway. So I knew a guy, and he had set me up at the company over there. And then I remember the day really clearly. He was a guy I used to work with. He showed me around his office and was like, "This is where we're going to work. This is what we're going to be working on." And I got this feeling in my gut, like I like it was in a knot, and I felt like I wanted to throw up nearly. And you know, when you kind of realize at some point in your life that you're doing something and everything for everybody else, but not yourself, and everything you're doing is for validation from peers, family, friends, school, and you actually have never even asked, "Do I want this?" And I just went like, I don't want this anymore. I don't love this. I don't want to be in this industry anymore. I'm not excited by it. Yeah, you can be good at something, but it doesn't mean you have to do it forever. And I think that's where you can get kind of stuck sometimes. Yeah, I was good at my job, but didn't mean I have to do it forever. But I felt like I'd let everybody down, and people would think I was flaky. I always have a thing, and I think a lot of women do have that. You don't want to be seen as flaky or someone that changes your mind a lot. And I don't know if you do human design, but I'm a manifesting generator, which means that I can change my mind quite a lot and want to do something that lights me up. So I, at that point, knew that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And what happens is, and you know all about this, Nick, I started having gut issues, started having loads of inflammation. I hope you listeners don't mind me saying this, was super constipated all the time. It was and on probiotics, was on everything. Oh my God. Like gluten was flaring me up, dairy was flaring me up. I gave up red meat. It didn't matter because my nervous system was in such a dysregulated state, because I wasn't generally happy in what I was doing, my body was screaming at me. And I went to a doctor in Canada and he was like, "You're burnt out." And then I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not." And I laughed because I remember saying it to him. I was like, "Actually, I've got to go to spin class. So can we wrap this up because I need to go?" And then he was like, "No, you're not doing spin class today. You're not doing that. You're going to go and do a Pilates class and you're going to chill out. You're going to rehabilitate your back because your posture is crazy and your back is really bothering you. You're going to connect with your gut. You're going to connect with your core. You're going to slow down." And you know, and I'm sure your listeners know as well, that Stop Pilates is from Canada. It's from Toronto. Started doing Pilates classes, and then everything changed.
So much of what you said just resonated. I similarly was also rubbish at sport because sport at school was very, here's a ball, go and play a game. And I've got friends now who are PE teachers. I think they do it a bit better now, but there was no teaching you how to do it. So you either were good at it like as a natural. And I've realized those in my over my life, I'm a really good learner, but I'm not necessarily a natural. And I think Pilates was the first time that I got to learn how to move. But people now, because of what I do, people they're like, "Oh, Nick, you're clearly really sporty." I'm like, no, not really. And similar to you, the career guidance, it's a really interesting point, isn't it? Career guidance, because there's the what you're good at and there's who you are and what you enjoy. And like, I love the word you said, what lights you up. That piece is never brought into the conversation. I get asked to go into schools sometimes and I try and bring that in. And I think there is a balance. You also have to balance it with what you're good at as well. You know, you can't say, "Well, I love this, but I'm rubbish at it." However, if you love something, you'll put more effort into it. So similar to you, I was very much like, "You're good at science, you should be an engineer." That's the conversation. So I totally get that. So you then, and I also, I mean, how amazing that you went to a doctor and they recommended Pilates. I've had a few clients over the years who are having fertility issues, and doctors have said, "Stop the spin, stop what you're doing. You need to go to Pilates." But for that to happen so long ago, that was amazing. So that was your first sort of introduction to Pilates. Is that right?
Definitely. And it's so interesting. So even when I went to the doctor that time, like even I wasn't even presenting looking like I was burnt out. You know, I've heard stories where like people have had a meltdown in the office. Burnout doesn't always have to look like that. Like I had my makeup on, like I was able to like still go to class. I was on autopilot. Like I was able to do a Pilates class, do a spin class. I was able to do all these things. So I didn't believe I was burnt out, if that makes sense.
And I think those high functioning women in particular, it's not that men are immune to this, but I think there is a piece with women of our generation that we could have it all. If we were academic, you know, we were going to college. There was kind of no discussion about that in my home. It's like, well, of course you will go. And of course you will get a degree. And of course you'll have the big job. And then you'll get the nannies. And then you'll do the, and it was like, that was kind of what I led to believe, and similar to you, you then feel like I'm letting all these people down. And also, like, I have these opportunities that maybe my mother didn't have and her mother certainly didn't have. Why am I struggling with this? I also had almost identical digestive issues to you, where your body is going, this, like, you're not happy and you're exhausted. But I always looked great because you put on the show, this is the performance.
100%. And you know, the fatigue is so heavy. It's like when you get burned out, you're so tired that the smallest task seems so big. Like, so if you've got to meet someone for coffee, it feels like an appointment. You're in a WhatsApp group and someone's asking you something. You're like, oh my God, they're all piling up, because it feels like you've just nothing left to give and your cup is completely empty. And then, as an effect, as you said, the gut issues, the pelvic floor issues are huge for me. But as you said, there's so many, for generations, especially in Irish culture, women were always busy. Like, and even it's funny, when I was living with friends of mine in my 20s or even in college, say if I lived in a group house and I was just vegetating, watching, we'll say, I don't know, MTV or something, and someone came into the house, I'd actually jump up and pretend like I was doing something. Just God forbid that somebody think I was idle or lying around. You never want to be seen as not resting. And thank God that's changed in my head.
A friend of
But
mine calls it readiness tension, where your body is
yeah,
primed in case anything ever happens. Of course, by the time it does happen, you're so burnt out, you probably can't deal with it as well, because actually having that readiness tension and how that lands in your tissues, in your gut, in your, like you said, in your pelvic floor. For me, an awful lot of neck tension and pain. And I think that busyness is, well, for those people who don't know, I'm from down the road from where Audrey's from, and I don't sound it anymore. I lost my accent. I've been in the UK a long time. But, my mum is the queen of busyness. It's a very Irish thing as well, isn't it? That kind of must always be on and always be on it and on top of everything.
definitely. And look your best. Like, I grew up when Weight Watchers was booming. Like, it was
Put your
everywhere.
makeup on to go to the corner shop because, who might,
Yeah.
it's what my mum used to say, it's what you think of yourself. You must always present yourself a certain way.
Yeah. So, so much pressure. And I know this generation, like now, having more pressure with social media and everything, but yeah, it just eventually gets to you. And when I did Pilates, then I remember I was actually lucky, because I started with Reformer, and the machines, I loved that I was on a machine, so you weren't going to move anywhere. You couldn't be distracted. There was nothing around you that could distract you. As you said, you were getting really close instruction. I was frustrated at the beginning. I thought it was quite slow. So I wasn't integrating like the movement into my body. I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? Or trying to predict what the teacher is going to tell me, or I know this one. And then all I wanted to do was like the arms ones, the bicep, like silly stuff. And then when I got into it, I was like, oh, I see what's happening here. It was almost like at the time you're working really hard, but you get the after effects maybe 2 months later, when you realize I'm moving more efficiently. I'm actually way more present. And like that's what it is, because you're on a reformer, you're being present. You can't do anything else when you're on a reformer. When the springs are going and you're being instructed, your brain can't go anywhere else, which means that you can then apply that, even though you haven't done it on purpose, that mental reaction to your daily life. So I remember being like more present in conversations and kind of going, actually, I don't know if I want to go on that hen party in that random island. It's kind of that, I don't know that person that well, and making choices or thinking, God, how am I feeling today? I don't know if I'm feeling that great. And actually digging deep, so Pilates gave me kind of the two things, the physical results, but also the getting me in touch with my nervous system and kind of being able to watch myself, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I always joke that if you're really time poor, which a lot of people who come to Pilates are, it's a great use of an hour because it's mindfulness. To me, it's like my meditation. If you've got a teacher who's cueing you in a certain way, you're so in your body, you can't think of anything else. It will help any aches and pains. So it's kind of a rehab piece. Yes, you get the strength and toning. That's the easy bit. All exercise will do that. But I think those other pieces make that hour such a special hour. And similar to you, my story is very similar. I started to realize there was a different way of living my life through Pilates. I talk about how Pilates changed my life. People think it's because I left the corporate career to become a Pilates teacher. I'm like, no, no, no. that happened before then, because I suddenly realized everything I'd been taught about life, about how hard you have to work, that only things come from the more you push yourself, that actually that was a lie. And that Pilates taught me that efficiency was the key. The more efficient you are, the more you have left to give, and that you can tune into how you're feeling and allow your nervous system to come back to a place of equilibrium. And actually, from that place, you make better decisions. Like you said, you feel more present. And that changed my life. It feels like it was similar for you then.
Yeah, and that's true. That then has this domino effect, like a wave effect, because when your energy changes, the energy changes of everyone around you, which can be good and it can be bad, but like you learn to listen to yourself a little bit better, and then you're making more informed decisions about what you want to do, which means that you can't be like swayed as much. And you're actually like, well, I'm not really sure if that's for me, or I want to explore this. You go on, or like if you're on holiday with somebody, you're like, maybe I don't want to go out tonight and actually want to get up in the morning and do something else. Like you can come up against it because you are like your energy has changed. You get an appreciation obviously for your body because you're like, whoa, I did this like started from nothing, and now I'm like doing an amazing roll up and I'm doing a plank, and I never knew I could do this. So now I'm kind of pushing the edge of like what my potential is. And this can be in so many other ways. And if I can do this, then I could do so much more stuff. And then you realize I don't have to leave Pilates and rush unless you have to go to work. But sometimes I remember like going for a coffee afterwards on my own and being like, oh, that's what it's all about, integrating this, sitting with myself, being on my own in a cafe and getting used to that. I mean, like, I actually really like my own company. And you meet people in class, like-minded people. It's just its effect. And I even find since I started Pilates, I made so many new friends. It's true what they say, like your vibe attracts your tribe. And when your energy changes, everything changes.
So what took you from these classes in Toronto that you're having these big sort of experiences from them? What took you from that to thinking I'd like to be a teacher?
I'm really science based, and like construction has a massive science side to it as well. So I need to see something to believe it, if that makes sense. So my back had been in bits for years, my lumbar, like all around my lower thoracic, I was always around my back. I also wasn't the most confident. I just had a lot of confidence issues about myself. My posture was very rounded all the time. Like even it's a thing of making yourself smaller, but like I was giddy and fun, but I didn't believe it, if that makes sense. So I was always kind of putting on a front all the time. And that really was affecting my posture over the years. So when I fixed my posture through Pilates, I was like, okay, this is working. I also was enjoying how my body was changing and getting stronger, as opposed to like, running. I love running, but I loved like spinning and stuff, but it was different. I felt like strong in my body. I felt like I was more capable, and then I had more energy, and then my mood and my energy changed. So I was like, okay, once that kind of switches on, you can switch it off. And I was like, I want to share this with people. I want to be in a place where I'm of service. And if this has worked for me in such a short space of time, it can work for like a million other people. So then I came home, had a chat with my parents, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually thinking of moving away from construction. I'm going to go back to college. I did 3 years of sports education. So I did like physiology and anatomy, sports management, personal training. I kind of went all in. And that's generally what I do with everything, to be honest. I am like an all or nothing girly. So I went back as a mature student, and I worked then as a personal trainer to support that. But I was very lucky, and I've talked with you about this before. It doesn't suit me to go from one thing to the other without a little bit of cushioning, if that makes sense. So if I had just left construction and then zoom went straight into like all the physiology and anatomy kind of work, I would be in a scarcity mindset because I would have no income coming in. The rug would be pulled on under me. I needed to pay rent, all these things. So I still was lucky that I had quantity surveying. So I could still do like Nixers, small jobs, contract work on the summer holidays, things like that. I worked with an agency. So that was great. And then I was lucky because like PT work, you can do house calls, all that kind of stuff. Then when I was doing that work, I was like, I had my foundations, and there wasn't many Pilates courses at the time in Ireland. And then during that time, a lecturer of mine said, there's a Pilates course. Here we go. So that was perfect because I had both then and I could bring it together. And I don't know if you're the same. I'm sure maybe some of your listeners are. Sometimes it can be a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes I feel like I can delay stuff, but not on purpose. I'm like, I have to do every single course and then know everything, and then I can launch, if that makes sense. when sometimes you don't have to do that. I could have shortened that down by a couple of years, you know?
I mean, there's a lot of people who sign up to my teacher training course and they've probably heard my story and they're interested in, maybe one day leaving their corporate job. But the need to be able to, like you said, have that income coming in is a huge part of it. And even when you start teaching, it takes time for you to be earning the kind of money that allows you to like step away from that job and fully pay for your life. So I think there always is a transition period. And I always, similarly, I kept my job going while I was training. And in the early days, I had it part time. It's needed, isn't it, to help you have that, like you said, not put you into a scarcity mentality and it feel like the positive step that it is.
Definitely. And even regarding ego and money and like I'm also a teacher trainer and I do sound healer teacher training. And a big part of that is the business side of things and the energetics of money and your career. So when I did quantity surveying, there was a little bit of an element of it's a good job and people are interested in it. And then people are like, oh my God, you're a woman doing construction. So it was a lovely talking point. So generally, a lot of the time, I could just talk about construction and it would deflect anything about me. People wouldn't ask me questions then about myself. And then I could just, that's kind of how I was float through life. So then when I stripped back then, and then I did Pilates, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing Pilates full time, having conversations with people, and they're like, oh, you're not doing construction anymore. Oh, what are you doing now? Oh, did you change your mind? And are you busy with that? Now you're just starting out from zilch, no background, no clients. You can get very discombobulated and overwhelmed because you're like, oh my God, is this a crazy? Am I making the worst decision of my life? People think I'm a failure. Oh my God, what have you just done? Who do you think you are? Crazy stuff comes into your head. People are just being curious. They're being nice. They're just asking questions because it's interesting. But all I could hear was judgment. And we're not moving fast enough.
I also think your job is such a part of your identity. I know for a long time when I started, I used to say, oh, I am a Pilates teacher, but I used to be a marketing director because I felt like that. I said that for a good few years. I wanted people to know that, well, you don't need a degree to be a Pilates teacher, but like I have a degree and I had a big job and it's like I needed that for my identity. And that's such an interesting piece as well, how our job is so part of that belief in our identity system.
100%. Because if you go back to like all the generations before us, the big job was really important. The big job, the status, the social status, and then your qualification meant you had a brain in your head. You know, it's such a load of nonsense because you and I both did Polestar and we both did comprehensive and they are hard exams.
I mean, talk to me about that. Tell me how you found that training and what it gave you. I mean, Polestar it's an amazing training.
Yes, I started out with STOT, did my mat work with STOT, really enjoyed STOT, lovely, but I wanted more. And I'd heard about Polestar and a studio in town was doing Polestar work. So then I started training up. I think the Polestar exams, I think it might take me over 2 years. I think I did
Same.
them.
I think 2 years was the norm, really. It's a lot to do. And it can be quite frustrating, can't it? Because if you did a lesser course, you'd have the certificate much earlier. But yet, it is a long time to be able to get to the level that they expect you to do it, and I also used to say that to people, like, it took me as long and cost me as much as my degree. Like, I needed to, again, justify that training to people.
Yes, because you could literally spending 40 minutes dissecting a bridge. I made beautiful friends through my course. I met you through the course, which is such a gift. I am very grateful for Polestar because Polestar brought in the healing through movement and it brought in the healing aspect and the pause and the questioning and the introspection. And that's when things changed. Like I remember, and I don't know if you relate to this, maybe people that are listening relate to it. Emotion was not a big thing for me. I was always either happy or sad. There was never really an in between. And growing up in Ireland, there wasn't much space to be like, oh my God, I'm feeling overwhelmed. You just didn't talk about emotions in the 80s. It was just non-existent. And even with friends and stuff, maybe a bit. So I never really would have shown emotion outwardly. And also I was not a great crier anyway. And crying doesn't come naturally to me. And sometimes if I have emotion, it'll stick. Well, it doesn't anymore now because I work in it, but it would stick in my throat. So if I was getting upset about something, I would be like, yeah, it's fine. And then it would get stuck here. And then I would forget about it and I'd never leave that energy through my body. But I remember doing Pole Star.
Did you do Liz and Diane?
Liz and Diane, yeah. And I remember one day just doing a C curve with her. And there was so much tension around my gut and my core. And I just, for once in my life, actually just was breathing efficiently through my hips. And as we all know, the hips, you store everybody's emotion, your own emotion in your hips. I just started trembling and then I started crying. And I was like, just stop, don't fight this. Just let it happen and let it go through. And I was like, this is everything. This is healing. It's movement. It's rehabilitation. And then that energy just moved through my body. And I didn't have to put a label on it. I didn't have to dissect it. I just was like, okay, this is the beautiful side effect of Polestar. And I've had so many beautiful moments at one-to-ones over the years where that's happened. We haven't had to find an explanation for it. We haven't had to go, what's that from? Or what? Just gone, that's moving through you. And then the hips release, the body's moving better. That kind of magic. That's what I got with Polestar. It was a physiology, it was the anatomy. It was amazing lecturers. You're in it, you teach it. It's that, you know?
The power that movement has, I think Pilates can often be people's first step into holistic health. I think things are changing a little bit because of the boom, and we'll talk about that's out there. But I think for a long time, people start Pilates because something hurt. They're then maybe more open, like you explained, going a bit slower when maybe that feels
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And then through the kind of training that I've had, you've had, you see it with clients, and I experience similar to you in my own body, in my own personal one-to-ones with my teachers. You see the body allow the energy to pass through, which is literally what's happening. That is the science behind it. And you start to see that this has so much more depth to it than simply a set of exercises. And so you often see with clients, they start to open themselves up to holistic health a bit more. They kind of go, oh, a bit like you, this is working. And I think we as teachers then get to sprinkle in, because we often have been on our own journey where we've then gone, okay, well, this has helped me feel this. I'm maybe a bit more open to some of the more holistic practices out there. And I know you have been. I'd love to hear what took you from Pilates into your journey, Reiki, sound healing, anything else really that, you went on to maybe help yourself, and how that came about.
Yeah, because I always feel like the industry, has got a lot of so many different versions of Pilates at the moment. And I definitely was working really well in Pilates, was teaching, working in a studio, and then the Postal Service in Ireland, Unpost. I was working as a manager for their corporate wellness in the GPO, which is on O'Connell Street. Anybody listening is probably like, I know the GPO. There was a gym actually on the top floor there. So I used to work with their wellness and I loved it. And I love that side of things as well. And people coming to me with different things. I noticed then that people were coming to me maybe for Pilates. I might have had a shoulder issue, like a guy in his 60s. And then as they're doing work on the shoulder, he's like, oh God, I'm actually finding like coming up to retirement quite upsetting and stressful. You're opening up all these feelings and emotions and worries and fear. And I was like, God, there's something in this, because a lot of my clients are coming to me with different things, or, women, again, similar, not enjoying my job. I don't know what to change, relationship stuff. And I was like, God, there's energy that I want to move through the body. I just don't know how. And I love what Pilates is doing. And I want to move it in another way. And I know you know yourself, a Reiki. I started exploring the world of Reiki. And then I started doing Reiki myself. And did my Reiki teacher training, loved it. And then moved into burnout for a second time. So because I was working at full capacity, and my corporate clients were like Google, Central Bank, gorgeous law firms, working with football teams, rugby teams in Ireland, loved it. Then I was like, oh no, it's happening again. I can see the signs. The gut issues are coming up again. The pelvic floor issues are coming up. The anxiousness, that kind of sleeplessness was creeping up again. I was like, oh, you have to get a grip on this. This is happening again. So I was very into sound, but I wasn't very into, I was good at meditation, but I wasn't amazing at practicing it myself. My mind just got very distracted. And if you're dysregulated, people don't talk about this enough. You can't just switch off and close your eyes and meditate. It doesn't work like that. People think that you can just sit down, close your eyes and meditate. And then if it doesn't work straight away, then they're like, oh, I'm rubbish at meditating. Hello, if your nervous system is dysregulated, you can't just go on that massive jump. You have to integrate breathwork. You have to integrate sound, Reiki, something to get you there. So for me, I started exploring sound healing, and I love listening to Susie Marco Shefflin's sound baths online. Then loved having a daily practice of meditation. And as I started doing that, I started regulating my own body. And this is around lockdown time. So like I didn't really have a chance to really go externally to sort out the burnout. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to do this myself, to pull the bull by the horns, starting meditation practice for 10 minutes every day. And as I did that, started exploring different sound meditations, different alchemies, different frequencies, different types of bowls, landed on the crystal alchemy bowls. And they just changed my life. They completely changed my life. I started that meditation every day and did a meditation for about a year. And then again, all or nothing, I was like, I'm going to become a sound healing teacher trainer, trained at the Sound Healers Academy in California. Did an initial training for 3 months, learning the science of sound, the theory of sound, the energetics of energy, how you move energy in your body, learning all about business, expansion, all that kind of work. Then I decided I actually wanted to move into a different realm of Reiki. So I studied with Kristen Eichel and Susie again, did my Reiki masters, and then spent another full year doing sound healers mentorship. It's an advanced mentorship to become a master teacher with the Sound Healers Academy again. And then I was like, this is it. And I have been working with clients since. So I will still integrate a little bit of movement. Generally, I'm sound healing all the way now.
Yeah. And I think that's it, isn't it? So often our own journey through our own well-being opens us up to these things. And then if we allow it, we can then start to share that and shape our clients' lives. You've mentioned a little bit about your work with some, corporate giants, Audrey. How did that come about?
It's so interesting because I get emails about this quite a lot from sound healers and from Pilates instructors and yoga teachers. And they're like, oh, I'd love to get into, we'll say, Google. And I'm like, and you know this, everything is about community and communication. And your networking isn't like just this like one network event and then you make a connection and you got the job. It's building this massive amount of trust with people all the way. So for me, when I started out teaching Pilates, I rented, and I don't mind saying this because it's like, it's not glamorous. I was working for a company called Aegon. I don't think they're around anymore. And then across the road was a pub called the Harbour Master. And the IFSC is the financial district, if anybody doesn't know, in Dublin. So I rented this bar that had an event space upstairs, cleaned the place out, put out some mats, and handed out flyers to every single business in the IFSC at the time. Hundreds of flyers. Went into receptions. Can I get a number of somebody in HR? If you contact 100 places, you will hear back from one or two. They will. Then I also reached out to like my friends. Hey, do you have a sister working in a company? Do you have a brother? Do you know somebody? Friendships, people that trust you already. And that's what happened. When I worked in Aegon, one of the girls, I love her in there, she was like, oh, actually, we might actually get you in here teaching Pilates. If your intention is pure and you want to help people and you love what you do, and your intention isn't like, I want to be the top wellness person in this company. It doesn't work like that. Building relationships, trust, people will talk about you and they'll spread the word. So with like Central Bank, I got a job through somebody I know, a friend who had done work with me before, Pilates work with me, and then another girl, two people came together. I had a beautiful opportunity. With Google, it was a recommendation. And then with Google, I was so lucky that I got to work on their online Motus app. So I taught Pilates and sound healing all through lockdown on their beautiful app. It's maintaining relationships, it's showing up. It's showing up for a class and there's 2 people there and there's 30 people there. It's genuinely that, not just taking everything as a quick hit, if that makes sense. And looking for long-term results at everything you're doing. And sometimes with corporate clients, and if I can't do it, I'll recommend to someone else I know, you know.
And what work are you doing for these partners now?
So with a lot of my corporate clients, they're coming to me with the same stuff that I have. So I recognize it. They're like, I'm not myself. I'm not feeding myself. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. Busy moms is huge right now. The guilt is so upsetting to hear it. Like doing beyond what they should be doing already. The drop off, go to school, getting phone calls from nursery. Their adrenals are so burnt out because you're just waiting for that phone call to say that your child has been sniffling and it's only picked them up. And 9 times out of 10, sorry lads, the mom is getting the phone call. then you're feeling the pressure from work because you're feeling like, oh, you weren't here yesterday afternoon, or maybe you were a bit tired. You have to almost like double down on like not being tired. I just don't feel that we're there yet at all. So I feel like burnout was huge. Anxiety, stress, people worried about not working from home, social anxiety, having to talk to people again. It's humongous. And then it's just a lot of people are just, we're talking about feelings more, talking about emotions more. So people are like, I actually don't know if I am happy anymore. I don't know what makes me happy. I remember one of the most hardest things I learned when I was moving into Pilates. I remember that day I went to that doctor. He said to me, what are your hobbies? Like, what do you love to do? Again, Canada, not Ireland. And he was like, I was like, geez,
Work.
work. I was like beyond work and going for brunch on a Saturday. I couldn't think. I forgot all the things that light me up. And there's so many things in my life that light me up, you know?
So do you try and bring some of this into the teaching you're doing with these corporates then?
100%. I had a corporate that came over for a 3-day offsite, actually, which is a lovely opportunity to have people for 3 days. They want to talk about awareness and how just to be aware of other people and how you're talking to them and how you're communicating with them and listening. So you wouldn't think that's a big part of what I do, but actually it is, because you're training your brains and you work with the neuroplasticity of the brain to create neural pathways to change behaviors. So some people find it really hard to be present. So if you're present and you're working with someone, you can't hear them. So you're interrupting them, you're talking over them, you're thinking about how you can interject, and that's going to cause friction. So that one, I had to actually talk about awareness and stress management. So helping them integrate techniques into their daily life to help them. So for me, I have a sound healing platform. So I'm lucky that I can say, well, do my sound baths, 10 minutes every day, start with 10 minutes, see where it takes you. All they have to do is put in their headphones. There's sound baths for stress, for anxiety, for self-worth, for manifestation, for grief. Grief is huge. Grief is one of the biggest things that I talk about, surprisingly, with corporate clients, because a lot of people are going through it.
Who's bringing these ideas to you? Is it the individual people, or is it like the HR team? Like, I guess you're partnering with them as a well-being support system. So do they come to you with some ideas based on what they've heard?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. There's generally two options. One is like, you're a big company, you've got a corporate budget, and then they're like, we've got, just this is hypothetical, we've got 40 grand this year to spend on wellness. Give it to, sometimes the people that get the job with the corporate wellness never really asked for it. This has been given to them in the company, and they might be like, well, let's just tick the box, and that happens. But generally, you'll always find someone that's in that company who's like, I actually want to do more than tick the box. I want to go deeper. And they might explore different things, like a breathwork professional. And I also teach breathwork, sound healing, maybe Pilates and yoga, and then might get a motivational coach. And sometimes they might get a celebrity who people can relate to and know already. And they might be those 4 like kind of pillars: wellness, mental health, all that kind of thing. And then they might contact me. They might reach out to me. They might have seen me online or something like that. That's one option. Another option would be, which happens to me quite a lot, I'm sure it happens to you as well, and somebody comes to my class, have a chat, move around, and then maybe call them on stage. So actually, like, I actually put your name forward in my company. I think my team would really benefit from this.
So do you go in and do talks as well as sound healings and movements? Did you actually, like, it sounds like you're going in and giving them some wellness talks?
Yeah, I do wellness talks. We were talking, actually, I remember with Evershed Sutherland's, which is a law firm in Dublin, a couple of years ago, we did a really nice talk on like family dynamics and mental health, which I thought was really beautiful, actually, just trying to understand when you come home from work, to switch between both sides and how you can be present when you get home. They're very into family in that company anyway, and they're very high pressure jobs. So it's really hard to bring that awareness to that feeling when you're coming home, that I'm home. And I even remember as a child, when my dad came home from work, I would lose it with excitement. You know what I mean? So the last thing you want to do is, when you're coming in the door, to be on your phone and being like, I can't do this now, I've got to answer this email. Just bringing the awareness to, is this reactionary? Is this urgent? Can I just be present with whoever I'm with at the moment, have my food and park that and make it time? You know, that kind of awareness. So I do a lot of talks around that kind of stuff.
Where do you pull insight for those kind of talks? How much do you structure before a session like that, and how much do you kind of leave it up to maybe some Q&A and what people are coming up with?
You know, people are good. Honestly, I really feel like they are. So they will give me an outline sometimes of what's going on in the company. And like, let's be honest, there's a lot going on politically at the moment. So it's giving people a lot of unrest, a lot of instability, a feeling of worrying about the future and not being in the present. So a lot of people say to me, like, can you do a structured talk about this? Maybe the first 15 minutes, explain what you do. Next 15 minutes, talk about, recognize the symptoms, and then solution. And then we practice. So it kind of builds that way, and then you have your home style. But everybody's different. And what'll generally happen is, because I'm working energy, I'm a healer, I'm working, and I shouldn't love using the word healer, but that's what I do. So you can also read their energy in the room. So you can sense the energy, and sometimes you're like, actually I can go a little bit deeper today with these people. And a lot of time people want to talk about it. They do. Some people don't have the opportunity to talk about stuff, or yourself, Nick. You might be going through something at the time, and then life gets in the way, or kids or whatever, and you've forgotten about it. It's like you've kind of discounted what your thought was. So sometimes when you have an open discussion, you're like, oh, actually, I wouldn't mind talking about this now. And you just realize that whether you're a CEO of a firm or whether you're just starting out as an intern, across the board, people are going through the same stuff. No one is better than the other. And it makes them recognize, and that's one of the beauties of corporate wellness talks. They kind of realize that, oh, wait a second, maybe that person didn't blank my email because they don't like me. Maybe they didn't blank my email because they're distracted. They have something going on. Maybe they have an elderly parent they're worried about. Maybe they're worried because they're getting a panic attack. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing how you've gone from your own corporate burnout to trying to support people. I often think if I had the skills and knowledge I have now, I might have done better with my corporate life. However, I'm glad that I didn't, because I'm glad that, this is where I've come to. Alongside that corporate work, you created your own online platform, Core State HQ. How did that come about? In a world of online fitness content, how have you brought this holistic side to life online?
I wanted to kind of have a space where, because sometimes you do want a really strong workout, and sometimes you want the somatic, and sometimes you just want to move your energy. So I wanted a space for everybody to kind of find themselves in it and not feel guilty for wanting to just like move energy. Or so I myself had gained so much in my own life for just having a daily practice and just showing up every day, no matter what it looked like. So I wanted a space for people to have that as well. So like if you're like, sometimes you wake up and you feel great, then yeah, move, do a Pilates class, do a somatic movement class, do a shake it off. But also some days, like we were talking about earlier, I slept really badly last night. I know you did too, because there was a full moon. Why don't I create something for people that when they go online, the sound bath for, I've had a really bad sleep, I need my nervous system to rest, I need a nap, sound bath for that. I'm feeling dysregulated today, I'm anxious, create a sound bath for that. So there's a space that people can see themselves in it. Also, I just want to have a nice stretch. There's a space for you there. And then the more I was doing this, I created again all or nothing. When I was creating the platform, I didn't really do small incremental movements. I was lucky easy because I had been working with Google, and they had created their online app called Motus. So I was like, oh, this is, if you, once you see to believe that something is possible, you're like, oh, I could do that.
And I imagine you learned a lot about doing the filming. You're kind of like, this is how to do it. These are the kind of platforms we can use. You must have gained so much from that.
Yeah, totally. Like the way they Googled it, and they won't mind me saying, because obviously people know, they have built a studio within the business. It's like what you see online, like a pretend space. And then they had two cameras, and they would be a man in either the UK or in the States operate the camera from there. And then another guy working on sound. And then there's just me talking to myself for like hours on end, probably saying really bad jokes. But then I was like, oh, so this is how this works. So then my friend Leah got me in contact with, like, oh, go to Aaron. She was like, he does really good videography. Contact him. Then I rented a space. And because it was lockdown one, if you weren't directly in contact with someone, I could rent that space. So I rented the space and did the filming there. And then for about months on end, just booked classes, built them up, and then I launched it. And then the same with the sound. I just wanted to have everything in that one place. So I absolutely love it. And you know yourself, when something lights you up, you just can't stop. You really can't. And I love my online community because, again, I'm from Kerry. I'm from a rural, it's not like rural, but like it's countryside, a lot of it. So not everybody has a Pilates studio downstairs. Not everybody has a sound healer in their local community hall, you know? So
I love the idea of the way that you've framed some of that content as well around your mood and how you're feeling and what you need and sort of leaning into that. I mean, it just sounds great. And similarly, I created my online platform in COVID. It was a good time to do some of that stuff because I was so grateful to go into the studio and record because we couldn't do anything else. And it allowed me to at least leave the house legitimately, which was nice. But I love how you've kept yours going and brought some of this new work into it with your sound healing. And it feels like that's what's really lighting you up right now.
yeah, and it just took over. So the sound healing has just taken over at the moment. And like I have a full moon sound bath tonight, regulars coming in, there's always new faces. And we will sit there for an hour and chat and talk about what we're doing in a really safe space where people can be like, I'm actually feeling really frantic at the moment, or I'm worried because my dog is sick, whatever it is. We're just openly talking to, and I read the mood, work with the energy we have. We'll do a sound bath. They have their headphones on. 90% of people are in the bed doing it. One of the girls has her gorgeous dog Nala with her all the time. Eye pillows on, like taking care of themselves. This is it. Like, find the lovely candle that you can do your practice at home, having your journal with you, having a deep night's sleep. That's where the magic is. So that's what I've kind of created with it.
I didn't realize it would work so well remotely.
Yeah, and we were even talking about microphones earlier because like, you've a really nice microphone there. I have really good mics, so I just like have a good sound system so I can pick up like loads of different sounds. And I also work with binaural beats. I'm sure you're familiar with binaurals, and a lot of people are hearing about binaural beats at the moment because they're very good for people with ADD or ADHD. It helps the brain create a third note. So if you're someone that's you're like, I can't think straight. I know that feeling. A binaural beat will almost turn you into a hypnotic state. A lot of teenagers use them, but I will do a sound bath tonight now because I know people's brains are quite busy at the moment, coming into spring, a lot on. I'll use a binaural beat a lot and kind of bring people into that hypnotic, beautiful state. And then we pull cards afterwards, not to, predict the future, but just for a bit of support, if that makes sense. I love it. And it's just ritual, isn't it? Like, I definitely think when I was younger, I would have ever thought of buying myself a nice candle and a nice journal.
I go back to what you said earlier about when you went to that Pilates class and it just felt so slow and you battled a bit with that. And I think the world of woo woo, for want of a better word, can also feel like that, can't it? It can feel like, no, 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 that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. However, as you get more in touch with yourself, you start to be more open to things. And so on my retreats, we draw cards and I always frame it as at worst, it's a bit of fun. And at best, it might be some insight. So that you kind of just take any preconceptions out and people are like, okay. And they pull them and then they're reading them and they're like, whoa. And then I get to say, guys, there's always something in the cards. When we've done some energetic work, we've done some Reiki, some group Reiki, we've done some sound healing on our retreats. It's so amazing what comes up in terms of guidance via cards, isn't it? I have a little internal chuckle every now and again when I hear myself saying things that I know 20 years ago I would have poo-pooed and said, oh my God, you guys are weird. And here I am now going, but you see it in the people who then draw them. On my retreats, often it's the first time they've ever done anything like that. They're looking at maybe the friends they came with. They're like, well, no, that wouldn't have made sense to me, that card. But this card really makes sense.
And because you are practicing Reiki and you're in your retreats and I know you do Reiki, you've also created space within people's energetic bodies. So when you have space, you have clarity, and then their frequency has changed. They're in a relaxed space. They've moved energy. They're in a space of safety. You're so much more receptive in that space, which is so beautiful. And that's thanks to you as well, Nick. That's a big part of what you're doing and the space you're creating. I had a sound bath with Coca-Cola recently, and I said at the end, we're going to do some cards. And it was 50-50 with men and women. And I was so happy to see the lads come along and do the cards. I was like, times are changing. And they didn't poo-poo them. They were like they were a beautiful set of cards that I have from Rebecca Campbell. But they were like, oh yeah, I actually have felt a vibrational shift. I'm like, yeah, it's okay to talk about this stuff and be aware of it. And yes, it's moving. And as you said, I suppose it's how you talk about it, as you said as well. Like it's science and it's magic. It's everything.
If I think of who's inspired me, they were often people who felt very grounded in reality, but brought to life some of these more magical kind of practices like Reiki. And I was able to hear it and listen to it. And I try, I guess, and bring that through. I'm a scientist, but when you have felt this stuff for real and you've seen things and you've experienced stuff, I think you can really speak from a place of truth. And I think people can hear it from someone like me, someone like you, because I also recognize that it can feel a bit conflicting to hear some of this stuff. So I think when you can bring that into the way that you frame it to people, it just takes down any sort of notions that they've got about what this is about.
Yeah, you're not shutting off your intuition. You're listening to it. Like in my sound healer teacher training, there's literally a whole module on how can you tap into your intuition and listen to that voice. Not trusting your gut is super like important. But something interesting, like even you're talking about energetics and how you frame it. Like I always think that's so interesting that like most population should be like, I don't believe in ghosts, but everybody has a ghost story. Every like, or you're not going to stay in an old house that's a million years old on your own, you know? But still, you're like, oh, I don't believe in that now. You're like, don't, you can talk about it in an, oh, it's like we're allowed. We feel things. We've all felt energy. Sometimes when somebody comes into your room and everybody goes, you can feel it, you know? And the beautiful thing about energy work, beautiful thing about the cards, movement, Pilates, everything, you're learning as well, like what my limit is, like what my boundary is. When you understand your energy and you understand yourself a bit better, you're like, that's not in my boundary anymore. And you learn how to say no in a way better ways. You learn to choose yourself a lot better. That's one of the best things with burnout that I learned of like, oh, okay, I can actually say no to that. Or yeah, somebody might be disappointed, but that's okay. They're allowed to feel disappointed.
Well, I got into Reiki because I would feel very drained from situations. I now realize I'm an empath and I would feel very drained. I didn't understand it. I had a Reiki session by chance, really, and was like, oh my goodness, this is the most amazing feeling. Explain it to people sometimes, like, when you have a massage and it's really lovely, but then the moment the massage stops, it's kind of stops. So I would say with Reiki, it's like it stays with you for ages. And of course, it's more powerful than that when you really understand it. But I got into it, and back to what you said earlier, there was, only extremes in how I felt emotionally and energetically. And so no wonder I burnt out, because I didn't ever learn how to feel any of the bits in the middle and to recognize, like you said, my own boundaries. I really struggled with that. And I think Reiki for me has been a personal practice for me that's really helped ground me and help me understand myself a bit more. I'm really interested, Audrey, to hear, what is your daily practice life? You've built up so much knowledge now. How do you bring this into your life? And what's your advice? We haven't all got hours to spend, have we, meditating and doing different things. How do we bring some of these ideas into everyday, real life, busy lives that can make a real difference?
Thank you for asking that because it's really important. And it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about earlier, like about the meditation side of things. And people are like, oh my God, I'm not good at meditation. I'm rubbish at it. I can't sit still. You probably can sit still. You've just been told you can't sit still. You've been told some nonsense about yourself that, oh, you're an overthinker, you're a worrier, you're whatever. Don't listen to that. You're your own person and you get to make the rules. So if you're like, I'm not very good at this, then consistency, show up. That's how you get better at things. Like I'm not good at origami, am I? But I'm sure if I did it for a couple of weeks, I could make some cool stuff out of paper. Do you know? That's it. It's consistency and showing up. So for me, I have to show up for myself every day. My brain has to see me showing up for myself. So when I get up in the morning, I think it was Mel Robbins or someone said it, and I do it all the time. I get up, I say hi to myself first thing in the morning. Say hi, check in with myself. I look myself in the mirror. I salute myself. Say hi, odds. Today's going to be a good day. We're going to do it. You're good. Then I go downstairs because if you can't say hi to yourself, at the start, I used to hate saluting myself in the morning. I felt like such an idiot. But it's important because if you don't love yourself, how can you love anybody else or salute anybody else? Then I go downstairs, have a glass of water, hydrate before you caffeinate. Isn't that what they say? Grab my cat, stick on either my headphones or lie down, and I will do a sound bath meditation every single day, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 50 minutes, 10 minutes minimum. I understand I'm very patient myself, and like some days I'll be distracted. Sometimes life is in the way. Just remembering to bring the attention back to my body, back into my breath. If I'm very dysregulated, there's something going on, incorporate some breath work, I'll incorporate some Reiki. Same thing every day. If I'm doing it on my laptop, I'll generally do it on my laptop if I'm listening to a guided meditation. That's fine. I don't have my phone with me. People are always like, oh, I'll get an alarm clock instead of my phone. Just have a little bit of self-restraint and just put your phone in the drawer. It's only 10 minutes. Because if you can't check in with yourself first before you check in the rest of the world, that's really hard. I do understand that if you have a newborn baby, they make the rules. So like there's exceptions, but on the days when there's not, that is my every single morning. Even if I have to go and do an event at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm up at 5:30. I'll get it done. And I might do it again before bed. I strength train. So I strength train 3 times a week and do my Pilates. They're my things. And then I'm open to other stuff as well. I do have a lovely chanting practice. Because for me, voice projection is very important. Making sure that people can hear me in a grounded space. Because nothing worse if you're going to a ceremony and I'm like, hi, everybody. Like it's not going to create. So there has to be a lot of training with my voice, grounding into my throat chakra. Yeah, I play my bowls. What am I saying? Hello. I play my bowls as much as I can nearly every day. That's the beauty. And I was saying this in my teacher training. You're teaching people how to play sound bowls. You're learning to teach people how to receive. But sure, there's nothing better for me than I had a sound bath yesterday. Made myself a cup of cacao, threw a bit of honey in there for my throat, had some rose petals, took out my bowls, and gave myself a sound bath for half an hour. And then I was ready to serve then, if that makes sense.
I love the idea of doing a 10-minute sound bath in the morning. I don't know why that just feels to me more achievable than the thought of doing 10 minutes meditation. I know it's the same, but it just, because even if my mind can't be still, I'm still receiving those frequencies. There's still something happening and I don't need to feel like I'm fighting myself. I could even imagine my son gets up super early, but he's quite into this stuff. I could imagine sitting with him for 10 minutes and, him listening, but even if it's just on, and I could imagine that just feels achievable.
Yeah, sorry, by the way, your kids are very cute. Oh my God, their cheeks are the cutest little cheeks. Um, Very cute. I love that. Yeah, because for me, I don't mind saying this. I went on a meditation retreat and I was saying that to you last week where there's a lot of moments just of silence. But for me, why am I pushing myself up against it? If I'm guided, so what I'll do is I will guide you, like feel into your body, soften your jaw, always remembering just guiding the body into the body, bringing the light in. And then we'll have a few minutes of just, if I'm doing exam about just 2 or 3 minutes of silence. And that's where you go into the brainwave states where you're kind of in the delta brainwave state, where you're feeling like you're seeing colors and shapes and you're like completely clear. And then you get back. So by the time you finish those 10 minutes, you're like, oh, okay. I feel a lot better. I feel like I can handle my day. Because before, when I lived in Canada, when I lived in Ireland, when I was quantity surveying, straight away on my phone, checking my Instagram, checking God, like if I was on if I check my phone now first thing in the morning, I would probably have notifications about Donald Trump and tariffs. That's not what I want to start my day with. You know? And what happens is when you train your mind and that's exactly what you're doing, you're training the mind muscles a lot more, you don't actually want to grab your phone. You're just like, "Oh, I'll make a coffee, or I'll make a tea, or I'll go upstairs, or I'll say hi to whoever I live with, or I'll go for a walk." Your brain starts rewiring itself differently, and you know that because you see it with clients day in, day out. As they get on the reformer and they move, their bodies start rewiring. You know what I mean?
For sure. Thinking of the Pilates industry, do you think that it is becoming more open to some of these more holistic practices?
Yeah. People will always find their people. And maybe sometimes there can be a starting point, but it might lead them somewhere else, if that makes sense. Do you know the way sometimes, maybe years ago, I might have gone to a bums and tums class or something like that, something that I would not do now. But then I might have found a teacher that might have been subbing for a bums and tums. And then I followed her to where she was. I kind of follow the breadcrumbs. Or sometimes you might meet an edge. You're like, I'm not enjoying that much. There will be people that might just want to go to Pilates for the aesthetics. And I kind of say, let them do that. And it might last a couple of months and then they might get curious. Do you know what I mean? And not to let people feel bad for wanting that because they're just moving through different things. And then other people might want to go to Pilates for rehabilitation, for getting into the body. Maybe their physio told them about it. Maybe like me, their doctor might have told them about it. Or maybe their friend was like, hey, come to a class with me. Like, I don't have a clue what I booked in for, but I'm going to do it. So people have different entry points, but I think that they'll always find the one that suits them. And it is hard. At the moment, it's hard for us, like if you're a teacher, to move through the noise. But I always feel that when you're leading with your heart and people are hearing you coming from a genuine, like with you, you're all about your community, like all about it. Like you are involved, your retreats, like I see it, I feel it. People will feel that. Like sees like, and that's what draws them. So, I never worry. And like even because in sound healing, there's a lot of different offerings. You know what I mean? And sometimes our wellness space can feel very saturated, but that's again where the meditation comes in. You're like, this is my North Star. What is my why? Why am I here? It's my people, the people I love, support, service, morning reminder. Every day when I do affirmations don't work on their own. You have to work with your mindset as well and clear the mental blockages. And Lacey Phillips is amazing. She talks about this all the time. But like for me, my affirmations in the morning, I say, I call in aligned people who are open to receive the magic of sound and movement today. I send out that every day. Why wouldn't you?
Oh, you've made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I remember when I opened this studio, I'm sat actually in the first studio we opened 10 years ago. I remember people coming and some people just loved what we were about. We wanted to do Pilates. People would often say, this is so different to anything else I've ever done. But you would get people who would be like, I don't get it. It's too slow, whatever. And of course, when you're new, that could really upset you. Actually, as time's gone on, people understand a lot more now about what my studio is about and that I love going to the depth. Our teacher training, I love going into the depth. Like you've talked about today, what movement can do for someone, what it can allow in them. But I love what you said because I think there is a real challenge at the moment in the Pilates world. It's booming, which is well overdue and phenomenal. But of course, there's no regulation. So huge differences in training, big differences in lots of things that are going on there. And so it's like, well, should we have a regulation and should we have different names for things? And how are people supposed to find what they want? But what you've said is, but they will find it if you can just allow them to come in and just feel in. And I suppose that's the guidance for clients, isn't it? If something doesn't work for you, just try something else. It doesn't mean that Pilates as a whole, just because you didn't get on with that teacher or sound healing or Reiki, it just means that you can maybe just try something different. And it's to understand there is a range of styles, but even within the same teacher trainings, I see this as a studio owner. The teachers that come out of the same teacher trainings are very different because, of course, their influences are different. What lights them up is different.
100%, because you don't get into this for no reason. You've had a life experience that's shaped why you're doing it. And, life in the universe will give you what you ask for and what you want. And I know for myself, and there was definitely points when I was in the Pilates industry, and Instagram wasn't very big at the start. It is now. But I remember being like, oh my God, like, how do I fit into this? Or where do I fit into this? And how do I make myself look different than everybody else? And I was like, I don't want to be this kind of teacher. And I don't want to be this. And I don't want to attract this. And I was like, Audrey, the more you're telling the universe and people what you don't want, they're not allowing what you do want. So for you, you're like, I want to call in people who are open to the magic of Pilates, that are ready to receive. I want to call in transformation and better relationships for my clients, because it has a domino effect on everything. And that's what happens. It's amazing. And you know yourself, that word of mouth is unbelievable. Because if you enjoy your experience, you tell everybody.
You do, and exactly that. I've really enjoyed our conversation today, Audrey. So much great insight. To finish our conversation, I've got a bit of a closing tradition with a few kind of quick fire questions. The first one is, what was the most influential piece of advice you've been given and by who?
It wasn't by anybody famous. It's not like Gabor Mate or someone, but it was a friend of mine. I broke my jaw a couple of years ago in a car accident, and I wasn't in great shape. And I was doing a corporate wellness talk that next week, and I was saying, I actually have a fine scar down my chin there. And I was saying at the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm really conscious of this, and I'm conscious that it looks like rubbish and everything. And then she was like, nobody cares. Audrey, nobody cares, because everybody else is thinking about their own stuff, because everybody else has other stuff going on in their heads. And when you take yourself out of the equation, you realize how all this is nonsense. Just show up, be yourself, and give the people what they need. It's not about you. And I was like, oh yeah, That's brilliant. And I
That
did.
is that is great.
Yeah, because she's a badass anyway. So she but I do remember that, and the more you realize that, you're like, "Oh, that person didn't pick up the phone, not they didn't like me, they're just busy. Maybe somebody didn't laugh at my joke. Maybe they were thinking about something else, or maybe my joke wasn't funny." You know?
So
It's
true.
not about you. It's not.
The second question, what mentors have shaped your life?
I've had lots of mentors over the years. I did my full mentorship with Susie Marco Shefflin in California, and that was an amazing experience. And I admire her work so much. She's incredible. I also had a mentor, Brian, who actually was somebody who I really admired, complete opposite of what I am when it comes to work and decision making. And he actually works in tech. And I contacted him a couple of years ago, and I was starting course date, and I was like, "Would you be my mentor? And could I have like a monthly call with you, where you could give me some guidance? Because I'd love a little bit of what you have, and I'd love to learn from you and how you make decisions, how you show up for yourself." And he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And he kindly offered his mentorship to me. I didn't have to pay for it. I've also had mentorships with my local enterprise office. That just a learning experience. It wasn't for me. I think as well, maybe they were just very squeezed at the time, maybe. So I was kind of moved around with different mentors, so I didn't feel like I could get what I wanted. But I think people do forget that you can shop around for mentors.
And change your mentors depending on where you are in your life. I think that was for me a big learning curve, realizing mentors are the best money you can spend, but what you need at one point is going to be different to what you need at another point.
Definitely. And with my year-long mentorship, I paid for that. And I love the accountability of it. That was important. For me, to be accountable is very important, and to answer to someone, even though they're not your boss, because we don't really have bosses when you're self-employed.
Exactly. It's great to have someone to bounce ideas around. So if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would that be, Ords?
I know this word unconditional love is so overused at the moment, but I often think that if I break down to be loved without condition, to love yourself without condition, Audrey, I would say that you can be in a room, you don't have to say anything, and you'll still be loved. You can be yourself fully, and people will like it or not. It's okay. There's no conditions involved, because the people that love you for every part of you, and just trust that. And then when you show up as yourself, that's the main thing. Because I used to think before that love was conditional. So if I was in a group, I thought I'd have to be like the doer, the carer, the different things. And then I learned I don't have to be. And people just love you just for you. That's the main thing. So
I love that.
it's lovers.
And
Yeah.
finally, what has been the most profound gift from Pilates?
The profound gift from being a Pilates, just really, really learning to what it's like to be in my body, to actually be in my body, to know that like lifting my arm isn't just lifting my arm. It's a full movement, feeling what's beneath the muscles, the cells, feeling my body on a deep cellular level. That's what Pilates did for me. I understand that I was more than just this. I was machined in a good way, and that I had to care for it and love it and treat it properly.
So true, isn't it? It's the feeling into yourself. I had a friend years ago who used to say most people just live from the neck up, but most of us was from the neck down. And if we learn to tune in and listen, our body will always guide us. And I think that's what Pilates does, doesn't it? You tune in, you don't realize it. Yes, it's a movement class, but you've shared, your thoughts on this. It opens you up in a way that you don't expect. And you hear these transformative stories from so many people in such different ways that it is just this amazing movement experience.
What you said there is really important. Your body will always guide you. It will always show you. It'll give you little signs. And then Pilates helps you listen, you know?
Audrey, thank you so much for today's conversation. It has been amazing to chat to you. I've loved hearing everything about what you've been up to and how you've gone from Pilates to all the other wellness practices that you do. So thank you so much for your time.
Delighted. I was so chuffed when you messaged me. I was like, oh my gosh, what a day to be alive. I was delighted because actually, it's funny. Energetically, I was on retreat. When I switched on my phone, I had two messages, one from you and another girl. And there were two messages that I was so happy to see. So I was so thankful. And I just think you're amazing at what you do. I've seen your business build and build and build and go into something so beautiful. But what I do learn from you, and I think we both share, is the community aspect is so important. And like it's the caring aspect, and you are that 100%. But I love looking back on when we met the first time and now where we are now. I think it's really cool.
Well, it's an evolution. Audrey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.